All right, hey guys, welcome to Columbia, Tennessee. I am at Game Time Sports and Training. Drew Massey, my good friend. What's up, buddy?
Good, buddy. How are you doing?
This.
Hey, man, it's been a
I've been down
pleasure.
here, what, 3 or 4 times now this year, and I've been waiting to bring the camera down.
Nice.
Come down to this beautiful place. Love it. All right, what's the square footage here?
So behind us we have a 7,000 square foot field, indoor field that we have, and weight room space is actually, if you combine what's over here and kind of what you're seeing right now, is about 3,500 square feet.
3,500
so,
of the usable
weight room space. Yeah.
Well, like you said, you're warming up, and we're going to see that you're warming up in there. And you got the sled. You do some conditioning in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a lot of stuff out there on the field work, and just to run people through here, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's exactly what we do.
And we got a batting cage down there, and another spin class, right? So that's all added to the.
That's all added to the square footage. And batting cage back there. We have a local community baseball team and softball team that come in and use that.
Yeah.
A couple guys back there now, and then we have a spin as well in one of our small buildings right there on the back into the hallway.
Very cool. Yeah. How long you guys been here?
We started officially training. Kind of a funny story in June of 2014. But before that, we were kind of unofficially training. I was still coaching and teaching at a high school.
Okay.
And so I would come in when we were just getting started, getting built. We didn't have any of this. It was just turf and like some TRX and kettlebells.
Yeah.
And I would coach at 5:30 in the morning, go teach school, and then come back and coach one other adult group at 5:30 at night on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Wow.
And Saturday mornings. We do Saturday mornings too. So
nice.
Yeah. And then we kind of officially opened it to the public and to our athletes and stuff in June of, like I said, 14.
Okay. So you're not the owner here.
No.
Right? Yes.
No.
Just I didn't say that. You're the director of.
Right, director. I'm basically the facility director.
Facility director.
Yep.
Okay,
Sure.
Great. And we're going to talk more about that in the business part of it, and how that works for you, etc. Who's coming here? What kind of a member? Do you have adult population? You have, obviously, I know you have athletes.
Sure. Right. So main our population are going to be adults. Anywhere from right out of college all the way up until 50, 60, 74 years old. Our oldest adult client, I think, is I think he just had his 75th birthday.
Right,
he trains on Mondays and Fridays at 7:15. And middle school athletes, high school athletes, one-on-ones. So those are the kind of people that are coming in here. So we have the full gamut of people. So we want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not just for the athletic population, but we're going to try to train everybody with the same principles and concepts that an athlete would train like. So
absolutely.
Sure.
Talk to me about the membership types, though. Can I come in here and get one-on-one, or is it semi-private? Is it mostly group? I mean, you have the spinning.
Right.
What do I got? What do we got here for memberships?
So a couple membership types that we have. We have our adult. We everything is based off of performance. We have our adult performance classes. We have our middle school performance, our high school performance. Like I said, spin, that's a membership as well. We have our senior adult training, which is anybody kind of over that 65 retired age. We kind of deal with that a little bit on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So there's a couple different membership types that you can have. We'll do one-on-ones, and then we'll also do semi-private, which is up to about 3 or 4 people working in the same group, and those differ because they kind of determine their time based on the group's availability and our coach's availability. So we have our normal sessions that train, that kind of have their set times, and then a semi-private or a one-on-one would get to determine what works for them.
Yeah, I know you follow Coach Boyle. You just got back from CFSC, right now, off the plane.
Literally off the plane.
I got here before him.
All right.
But are you doing any team training though? Like as a team, you are.
We do a lot of team training. Matter of fact, that was one of the things that took off for us early on that we didn't really account. We thought that it would be a lot of just individual athletes from different competing schools and things and just kind of putting them into one group. But what we found is that we train a lot more team-based programs where the whole team comes in and trains together for an X amount of time, because quite honestly, around here in the weight rooms at the high schools, you know, the football team kind of rules the roost. So we get a lot of these travel teams, teams that don't have a lot of weight room time, or maybe don't have somebody dedicated that's the expert in strength and conditioning. So they'll come over, we'll train. We just got done training. Central soccer season ended last Tuesday. We've been training those girls since April.
Wow, okay, great. So talk about the location. I wouldn't say it's industrial.
No, no.
It's kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah, absolutely. Very rural. Yeah.
And so how many, like, is there a lot of high schools around here, or is it big high school, or how does that, like, with the location?
Right, so Central's our main high school. In Tennessee, it's kind of class 5A. There's 6A's the biggest, 5A's next.
Oh, okay.
So we have them. Spring Hill High School is also close, and they're kind of I believe there's 4A. I could be wrong on that. They're kind of one level down. And then we have Mount Pleasant High School, who's also kind of the big 3 high schools in the area. Now with that, we also have Zion Christian Academy, which is a private high school, Columbia Academy, which is a private high school, and Agatha's Classical School, which is a private middle school, high school. So we deal with all those, and with all those high schools come their middle school groups.
Yeah.
So there are those as well. So that's kind of our athletic population. Kind of we pull from all that.
Yeah, centrally located.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, let's go out and we'll get a tour of the place, and then we'll sit down.
Sounds great. All right, guys, let's go take a tour and see what Game Time Sports and Training is all about.
Well, actually, Drew, you know what? Let's give them a look here. Like I said, it's kind of
we're in an industrial park area. Yeah, sure.
Rural.
Yeah, a little rural. Yeah, a lot of greenery.
But
a lot of greenery.
Cool. All right, let's go in. Oh, there's the Game Time.
Right. Let's walk through.
Not a lot of walk-by traffic here.
No, not at all. Not at all. So obviously, guys, you come in right here. This is kind of our goal board. You know, very Simon Sinek, like start with why. Like, you know, if training has a direction and a goal, you know, these are kind of the things that we're the kind of the culture that we're trying to build, is that you should have a reason for everything that you're doing it, and you know, we're always working towards that. So that's a big part of what we one of our sayings is, you know, better is always better. So that could be that could mean different things for different people. So
absolutely. Good stuff. So where are they coming in? Where is that? They're going to come through in locker rooms or anything like that?
Yep. So they'll come right through here, and then they'll check in. Usually Hannah or one of our front desk folks is coming in. We use the MindBody software, so they'll check into this kiosk right here.
Okay, cool. So like kind of like a self-check-in.
Yeah, it's completely self-check-in at 5:30 in the morning. Obviously, we don't have a front desk person up there, so they'll come in, check in. They'll walk right through. We have water for our training clients, our teams, and all that stuff. They'll grab a water, and then we have men's bathroom and locker room, women's bathroom and locker room. We actually put the showers and locker room on probably a year after we were open, just because it was a need for some of our early morning folks. And then we have lockers there that we keep some of our cleaning supplies, but they're more than welcome to put all their belongings and stuff from there.
Cool. What's going on here with the picnic tables, though? Is that for parents?
So this is kind of a gathering area. I'll get my sunglasses out of the way, but this gathering area allows parents to kind of watch. We host a soccer tournament here every year through Columbia Soccer Association. It's a huge last year, we had to turn away teams because there were so many that signed up for it. So this allows for a nice little viewing area, and then this also allows for parents to kind of see what their kids are going through on the field right there.
Yeah. Nice.
We'll also we've hosted everything from a birthday party to a baby shower in here. So it was kind of cool. One of our first employees had his kind of a guy's baby shower, and he hosted it here with football and stuff. So it's a cool little meeting spot. Athletes that are getting ready to go out on the field, obviously this is kind of where they'll hang out for a little bit, you know, and copy each other. I mean, do each other's homework, you know, right there. So it's a nice little gathering spot for us. Sure.
So where are they going first when they come in?
So they'll come through here, and usually there's 2 entrances onto the field. Most of the time they'll pop out here. They can kind of go around there a little bit and come through this way. But generally what they'll do is they'll just come in. We have our, let me give Chris and those guys some some pub here, right? Rob and Griff and all those guys, Aaron, all those guys will be happy. But
special foam roll.
that's a special foam roll. You cannot get that at Perform Better, right? You cannot get that at Perform Better. But they'll grab a foam roller, and then our parent company is Southern Athletic Field, so it's kind of how we kind of make Thomas Plummer happy with us too, because we kind of keep everything in one little spot. So they'll grab a stretch strap, and they'll grab a miniband, and then they'll head on. With our adults, we'll usually kind of let them kind of line up against the wall. We'll use the wall for, shoulder cars and hip cars, wall slides, for bracing and things like that, if they need some support. We do a lot of face-to-wall squats and things like that in the warm-up. So then they'll come here, they'll warm up. We'll warm up kind of up and down the floor after we go through our foam rolling, our stretching, our activation. Then they'll kind of get into more of their dynamic warm-ups, so there's plenty of space to get our knee hugs, our quad pulls, our skips, our high knee runs, back pedals, and things like that, shuffles, karaoke, all that good stuff. And then from there, they'll literally kind of come out here. And the way that we set it up, if we had our TV on, I could kind of show you what a normal program looks like, but the way that we set it up is our first section, or our first big group. It's our first 3 exercises. These are our biggest, but we're fresh. We're right out of the warm-up. Our first 3 exercises are they're called our money exercises, right? These are the show. So these are the things that we're going to program our periodization schemes and things of that nature. So usually it's something here on the platform, whether it's kettlebells, barbell, trap bar, any of that kind of thing. We'll do our chops and lift with the cable. And then we may be doing something like today, for instance. Today we're doing dumbbell bench, right there where our dumbbell racks and things are. So
all located right.
Yep.
You said that if you had the TV on, I don't understand. What's that reference?
I got you. So we have our TVs right here. Yeah. We just pop that up, and that puts our program up on the screens.
Okay.
So whatever we're doing this month, our programs run in month increments for our adults, and we'll put our adult program up there. When the high school kids come in, we'll put our high school program up there. So they always have reference, because if I had $1 for every, hey, how many reps am I supposed to do? Yeah. Or how many sets are we doing? So that just kind of gives them a nice little reference point to go up and check it out. So
cool. Med balls and plyos, or they do our wall around here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing we don't have is a concrete wall to throw med balls in. So a lot of times we'll go on the outside edge of that wall right there, and go into some of our half kneeling and tall kneeling med ball throws. We'll do that as well. Our Plyo Boxes here, we'll use the steps for some reactive step ups. Some other Plyo Boxes from Jared and those guys that move strong. So they'll come sometimes do their plyometrics here, and then obviously we have our med ball racks and things of that nature.
Now with this Move Strong,
yep.
I know you were like the rep or teaching.
Oh, I still do some education for those guys. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. I'm still on the education side of that a little bit. Jared Kuka started that company after Free Motion, and I've done some education for them as well. And so he and I have hooked up and done a lot of education with that. And he was gracious enough to allow us to kind of put some of the stuff in the facility when we started. So
very cool. Do you do like a class like just on that too?
We don't actually. It's probably but it is. It's a lot. It's a great place, because this serves as as another section. So just for instance, with our ground rotational trainers and our our landmines, or what we call our GRTs, we can put this. We can set the barbells up, or this allows us to have 2 other racks, Anthony. So like we've got 3 racks here. We can set our J hooks up, for here. And then that way we can kind of tell folks like, hey, if you're this weight, this weight, this weight, or if we're over here, then they kind of know which rack to go to. Great. But the other thing is it also gives us another station. So we may go, we're going to go barbell work, we're going to do cable work, and then we're going to do, banded face pulls on the Move Strong. So we incorporate, we use this so much, just like we do everything else, because we're small enough that everything has to have a purpose, right? And then we'll go, like I said, we have our med ball. If we're doing an athlete group, Our athlete group will warm up and do their speed stuff out there where I showed you where we're doing our warm-ups and things. So we'll do our speed and agility work out there, and then they'll usually come in through here right into plyometrics. So you can see we have our hurdles and things of that nature over here. So we'll set the hurdles up if it's an athlete group, and we'll go through some of those. We'll move the boxes over if it's in phase 1. That's kind of when we do our box jumps and things of that nature, working on that good landing mechanics and things of that. So they'll pop in here. And so now they have a nice little transition to come out of the field, right out of speed. Nervous system is still up, it's still high, we're still elevated. Come in, get some great power work in. Lower body power with the hurdles or boxes, get some upper body power with the med balls, and then now they're ready to go in. We know they're nice and really geared up to lift.
Very cool.
Yep, sure.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And finishing up with, where are we finishing up on?
So then what we'll do, depending on what group it is, if we're doing an adult group, like I said, most of our stuff is done out there, and then we'll have our four accessory exercises, which is, you know, some core work, some mobility, maybe a mobility exercise, and 2 auxiliary exercises, maybe an upper body and a lower body, where we may be doing, like, you know, 3-point dumbbell rows over here, and maybe that's if it's depending on what we're doing there, that may be a single leg squat with TRX.
Okay.
You know, so that's going to be, it's not our big bang for our buck exercises, but it's those auxiliary exercises, and we kind of look at that like those are our insurance policies. Those are going to do things, injury prevention, going to shore up some corrections and things of that nature. So we'll go from there. If it's an athlete group, kind of the same thing. Sprint, agility, plyometric, lower body, light implement power, into the weight room for our explosive exercise, and then our 2 main exercises, our 2 main lifts. Then they'll finish up with auxiliary. That's where the Move Strong comes in really, really handy. You know, a second dumbbell rack, and then we come right back out onto the turf, and you can see that it's already kind of lined off with our cones. Then we may run our conditioning, you know, whether we're running shuttles or whether we're doing some kind of circuit. We may put, if it's an adult group and we're running kind of a circuit deal, we may do, you know, sled push for 10 yards. We may set up our ropes out here on the turf where we hook the ropes in together, and then ladders may be on the other side, so they're kind of boom, boom, boom. If it's an athlete group, if we're working tempo runs, hey guys, you know, we're gonna start at this cone here right where the door is. We're gonna sprint at 75%, walk it back, we got 8 reps. You know, and then from there we'll go right into our stretching. We put our stretching at the end to kind of, you know, that sympathetic, we're super high, we're coming right out of conditioning. Now we want to send them out of here feeling better than when they got here. So we'll come in, we'll have a nice 5 to 6, 8 minute stretching session, get them back. That's when we're going to go back into our breathing exercises. That's when we're going to get into some of our resting postures. That's when we're going to look at, you know, some soft tissue length and things of that nature. And then we'll send them on their way and then tell them we'll see them tomorrow.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Drew, one question while we're out here. Obviously, we're in the middle of this big field.
Sure.
And you know, we'll talk about some revenue stream stuff
Yeah.
later. But the logistics of this, I am assuming, and you said you have some soccer teams, some teams come in here.
Sure.
You know, it's going to interfere with. Okay, I'll remind everybody.
Yep.
This is kind of the warm-up area.
Yep.
This is some conditioning. You're doing some sprints in here too.
Sure.
You got this whole area. What if you have a team in here? Does it get a little hairy with logistics here?
Logistics can get, it's really fun because the energy in the room is really high. But from a coaching standpoint, and we have great coaches here, it relies a lot on logistics. I've become probably a better logistics expert than a coach at this point, and communication. Where are you going, because we run groups simultaneously, so we may have a group start at 6 and then another group start at 6:30, and they're coming behind them. And if it's an athlete group versus an adult group, some of those kind of things can get hairy a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's a coach communication. Hey, where are you going to be? What can I help you set up with? What do you need to break down? Leave those out, you know, pick those up. That's kind of a big thing with us. But what we can do in the middle, if you can kind of turn the camera around here, you can kind of see where this hooks in. This is a pulley system. Oh. We can actually curtain this section off.
Oh, nice.
So we'll curtain this section off of our facility, and we will host a team or a practice or anything can go on this side, and it doesn't affect our training.
Yeah.
The only thing that may affect from a training standpoint is the length at which we can do things.
Yeah.
So now sled push, instead of sled push going, 20 yards or something, maybe it's a 10 or 15 yard sled push, or we'll turn them around this way. You can see that we have the goal kind of open space there. If we're running sprints with our athletes, they may start actually out there and run through the goal and have this to slow down. But we've hosted, Anthony, everything from football teams that the weather's bad and there's a big game Friday night, a big playoff game late in the season. We'll host them. They'll come in and get some work in, just to get some work in. Obviously the season's too high to do a lot of throws, but we've had soccer teams practice in here. We've had softball, baseball teams practice in here. The University of Tennessee and the University of Auburn were in here last year because they had a game at one of our local parks here at Ridley Park. And the weather was awful. It was cold. It was like so unlike Tennessee. It was crazy. It was like you came down from New York and just set down all the cold and wet and rain and stuff, set it right down on top of Columbia. Well, they needed a place to practice because the game was actually the next day. So we were able to adjust our curtain and do some things, and we were able to host them, and we got them in and out of here without any problem at all, and they had a great time. We have a batting cage back there, so they got a chance to hit and do some of those kinds of things. So
very cool.
Yeah. It was cool because they had their strength and conditioning staff, so some of their injured athletes that needed some treatment, we had our 2 treatment tables, we had our mini bands, we had everything that they needed. It was kind of like a small college facility, just ended up being right here in Columbia, so they really enjoyed it.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, well, let's go sit down. We'll talk some business.
Sounds great.
All right, Drew, great tour. Love the place.
Thank you.
Let's start out with just, again, a unique situation. I did this with Jim Kilbasso up at Total Performance.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's
got a big influence on some of our speed stuff for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
President of the IYCA. Jim's not the owner either, but he was there in the design. He helped them from right from the start. You're in a similar situation.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I don't own the building. Right.
Of the whole facility.
Right, I'm a facility director. I don't own the building at all.
Yeah.
I mean, right.
So talk to us how that works. Like, what is your role and how that came about?
So it's kind of an interesting story. Our owners, Mr. Bill Marbett and Jason Lovell, own Southern Athletic Fields, which is an athletic fields company. Turf and dirt and some of those kinds of and all that goes with it. They basically everybody on the East Coast, all the SEC teams, they take care of their field stuff. And they bought the warehouse to kind of lay out their turf that you see. And a soccer team came in and wanted to do some things indoor.
That was all by accident.
All by accident. And Jason Lovell got my name from a couple people in the community and gave me a call. We had actually kind of known each other a little bit prior to that. And he said, "Hey, can you come show me what to do with these kids?" Right? I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And kind of gave him some ideas, and then that kind of spurred, "Hey, do you think we could do this in this space?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be awesome to do in this space." I would never have the opportunity to do that by myself. And so to hook up with those guys and the reputation that Bill and Jason have in the community, and not only with the business they do, I thought it was just really a great opportunity for me, and jumped on that as quick as possible.
I just met Bill, great guy.
Oh, right, and he's like that all the time, right? Yeah, he's just a genuine guy.
But how to let's talk about moving forward now. It's been about 3 years.
Right.
How do they keep a guy like you? Because here's the thing, we know you can go out, you've been through the ringer. If you've opened a business with anybody, it doesn't matter. I don't care if it's a tea shop.
Yeah.
You've had some problems.
Sure.
And you work through those.
Sure.
How do they keep a guy like you? Because you're the meat and potatoes here, right?
Yes, sir.
And so how do they keep a guy?
One of the biggest things that I still to this day is we all three have a great relationship. If there's problems, I can go to them, and I'm not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed to say, "Hey, we messed this up. How do we fix this?" kind of thing. The other thing is that they're heavily involved as well. And what I mean by heavily involved is they don't dictate our training.
Because they're not trainers. That's
not at all. Right.
Important part of the partnership.
And that's what I was just fixing to say, is that the great thing about that is that they understand that this is not their area of expertise. Kind of the business and the turf side of things is. So they leave a lot of the training decisions and directions that we're going with it, whether it be with our adults or our athletes or our senior adult training, some of those things. They leave all those decisions up to myself and our staff to see where we want to take that. Bill is a product of our training. He was going to have a knee replacement. So he got together with two friends of his. They created their own small group, and they train on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9:30. Wow. And with him, and he makes time for that. And we got him prepared for surgery, and he had it, and has done great with it, and is back training. Doctors are extremely pleased with him. We have a great relationship with Middle Tennessee Bone and Joint. So we stayed in contact with them throughout the whole time to make sure we were doing what they wanted us to do, and he's had a great deal. Jason's in here 3 or 4 times a week, so we see each other a lot. So it's not like something that's on the back burner and then all of a sudden something goes wrong and they're in here like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Just a second ago, like he was like, hey, I was listening to this guy on the radio and he was talking about coaching and here's something I think that we can do a better job of, and I was in 100% agreement. Like, yeah, you're exactly right. This is exactly something that we need to implement on that.
Yeah, well, you need to stay in your lanes. You need to know what the other lanes are doing too, because they're part of it. So. Yep,
and they're great about because they do have a great business sense. Is that they don't if a solution that we have to a challenge doesn't work, then it's like, okay, next solution. It's not like we've got to hammer this until it works. It's like, okay, that didn't work. No, other than time, no big deal. Let's find another solution.
It helps that, like you said, that they're here as well, because if they're just looking at numbers, that doesn't always
It doesn't always, right, exactly. Man.
Let's talk about, this is a bear here. I mean, it's a big field. I mean, it's a lot to handle.
Sure.
Like you said, you're a trainer.
I'm a coach.
And now you're a coach, and you have to worry about managing a batting cage, and are people coming in for the spinning class, and more importantly, the soccer field, because it's a big space that's not being used a lot of the time.
Right.
Talk to me about managing that.
So that's been the biggest challenge for me personally. Like, I literally, if you were just to set me in an area the size of our weight room, like, I'd be 100% comfortable, right? That's my wheelhouse. That's what I know. That's what I understand. That's where I have immediate solutions to problems. This has been another thing entirely. So trying to figure out that we have a field where we obviously use, half of it for our warm-ups and our speed work and our agility work and some of those kinds of things. But how do we make the other half just as profitable? And it was a challenge then, and it still continues to be a challenge today on how to do that the right way. So what we've done, some of the solutions that we come up with, people can rent the field out. We said that during the tour, right? So people can rent the field out. We've done a huge indoor soccer tournament. We partner with Columbia Soccer Association, and they run a huge soccer tournament. We can actually wall it off to where people can, have practices and things like that. We've done adult rec, so we've played, we've played adult kickball in here.
That's awesome.
We've played adult. One of the coolest things is adult flag football. It's 5 versus 5. We played on Sundays. So that's the other thing too, is like, you got to find out when you're not training and you have access to it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So now your non-peak hours become profitable. So we find, on the weekends and Sundays, especially during football season, we have an adult flag football league, 5 versus 5. The walls are reinforced, so you can kind of bang each other off the walls a little bit, and that's a lot of fun, But managing that, it definitely is a challenge where, how do we make sure that we're making the most use of our space while at the same time making sure that all of our space is being utilized and that it's profitable and it makes sense from a business standpoint.
I love what we were talking about earlier about the kind of being proactive and kind of having Hannah watching the weather. Talk to me about that.
So we talked about the social media thing is huge now, obviously from that standpoint, but Hannah literally watches the weather, and Hannah will see that, maybe Thursday it's going to rain. Yep. So on Tuesday or even Monday, hey, we'll put a picture of a baseball in mud. Like, hey, you can't play on Thursday. Think about game time if you want to get your practices in, if you want to get your work in, just some field work or things like that. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit. Soccer, baseball, softball. We've had football teams in there. We got guys from Columbia State right now hitting in the cage right now. So, we'll promote that. And then hopefully, that space fills up. But that's another challenge in itself, because you have one night that it's going to rain out of the week maybe. And then once you're 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, you know, we're dealing with mainly youth athletics, so nobody's going to rent it after 8 o'clock. You know. So now you've made your money for that day, but you've had to turn away 3 other people, and it's not going to rain tomorrow. We've had a group of people that come in after hours from like 9 to 11 and play indoor soccer. So we know, and they'll come in and they'll rent it for a couple of hours, and they'll play indoor soccer till, you know, 10 o'clock at night. Some of our adults will, and they'll be.
When I worked in New York City, I had a couple. I was in the bar business, and I had a couple of Mexican guys that worked with me. And they would go at 2, 3, 4 in the morning sometimes, and because the fields, the indoor fields, and even the outdoor fields were being rented because a lot of the Latino population was working in restaurants. Same
thought, and they're done. They're done. They get off of work.
That's their 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They would go over. And
same thing we have here.
Finding a time that is work for other people.
They're phenomenal with it. They come in. They clean the place up after they leave. They're phenomenal. It's great. So like you want to come in and rent our space for 2 hours? You come in and kick that thing around, man. Like we don't care.
Let's segue that into social media. You're talking about how she works on social media. One of the things I've been I talked to my other Massey coach.
Oh, right. Cool.
And Massey Machado. We were talking to them about social media, and look, we know it's works for online businesses. Sometimes with the brick and mortar, it takes a little bit more of an effort.
It's a focused effort, right?
What are you guys doing?
So we go through all the mediums, right? So Facebook, Instagram. We tried Snapchat, didn't really work out. Kind of don't really do much with that anymore. Twitter, obviously, is huge. So we use those not only to communicate with our individuals. So it's really easy. Like, you know, you were here last, January, and it snowed for like 1 inch, right? And like the whole state shuts down. The whole state shuts down. Like you can't get
delayed. I didn't think I was gonna get to the airport.
You got delayed. That's right. Like
people on the side of the road. It was an inch.
It's crazy. Nobody knows how to drive it. It scares everybody. You can't find milk, bread, or eggs. Like why those 3 things that are like, oh no, I need milk, bread, and eggs. I don't know. Maybe make a milk sandwich, but it's just kind of funny. So that allows us obviously to get that communication out there pretty effectively and really in almost real time. Right? You make this, hey, 4:20 in the morning, I'm up, I go out and look at it, whatever. Like if I can get here, then I'll text Hannah like I got here, but like nobody else is gonna want to be here. Like let's our first class is gonna go. We'll open up at 9 because you remember it's 1 inch. It's gone by 10 o'clock, but it ruins everybody's day, right? So that aspect. But the other thing that I think that's interesting about social media, and then I've said this about coaching for a long time, is that it allows us to highlight our clients and our members and make it about them. It's not about us, right? It's not about Coach Drew. It's not about Coach Kyle or Coach Jeter or Coach James or Coach Taylor or Coach Cam. It's not about that. It's about that individual and the progress that they've made, or they're starting their fitness journey. An athlete is I'm trying to make the 8th grade high school baseball team, and I'm in 6th grade, right? Or I'm trying to make it to the varsity level, or from a varsity standpoint, like I'm being recruited, by these smaller colleges or whatever. I want to get to that next level. So it allows us to really highlight those individuals. And what's cool about that is we'll see people that will come in and are, hey, I got this on Facebook, my Facebook post from 3 years ago. It's amazing that the change I've made. Like, holy cow, like I used to think this was heavy, and now, like, that's not even something I warm up with or anything. That's cool. Or we like see an athlete that comes in and we're like, man, like, hey, Sarah, she was a post-op ACL and now she's playing college soccer, so it allows us to highlight those individuals and make it more about them versus more about us. And I think that from an impact standpoint, our whole start with Y-board, like it allows us to do that really effectively through social media, because everybody, high school kids are on Instagram and Snapchat, adults are going to be on Facebook, and everybody in there under the sun's on Twitter following somebody.
Good stuff. Let's finish up with just some kind of wish list or things, because we were talking. I was like surprised that you did not have a med ball wall.
Man, and that's gonna bring that up. That's it.
Bad.
It is.
But what are some things you would have liked to kind of redo if you could have done?
Oh man, We could do a whole show on that, Anthony, to be quite honest with you. But you know, coming in and starting the way we did, there are two big equipment things, and then there's some business things that I kind of want to talk about. But one of the two big equipment things is none of the walls in here, obviously you see none of the walls in here are concrete.
Yeah.
And we can't throw med ball wall, you know, against our reinforced walls. But you know, that was our big thing. Like, we didn't all, like that back there where you see the racks and stuff.
Racks,
right.
Yeah.
We didn't have that first originally. We had we got a contract with a high school baseball team, and they had 30 kids. So we don't have a ton of interns. Normally with us, it was like one coach per 12 to 10 people. So when we were looking at 30, we were like, oh my goodness, those racks, we had two racks, and they were against that red wall back there. So I went to Jason Bill and said, hey, here's our problem. Our only solution is, can we invest in some more equipment and things like that? And so we came up with this layout, called the guys at Perform Better, Chris, Rob, and Griff, and those guys, and Aaron all helped us out. And they sent in the flooring, we set up our flooring. But when we set it up, it was freestanding, and it wasn't enclosed. Well, two things, like, I don't really know how comfortable people would be walking past that.
Yeah, it's a little,
right? It would be a little bit intimidating, or, you know, God forbid a kettlebell like slips out of somebody's hand. I mean, sure. Murphy's Law, right? So we had to come in and build this partition out of concrete. And either I was too occupied with trying to get the space, like, I didn't get them to build it higher, like on one side. We literally could take that side and elevate it to a 10 or 8 foot wall and have a perfect place for 3 to 4 people to throw med balls against. And we did. I kicked myself like on a daily basis. I'm like, man, we should get rid of those bleachers, and we should be like smashing med balls against that. But we do some things in half kneeling and tall kneeling where we'll throw some against that. But it kind of makes me feel better about it. Like, I do kind of have a med ball wall, but I don't. But with that being said, the other thing, and this is one of those things where you got to listen to people that are smarter than you. And I think I read in one of Mike's books, Coach Boyle, you know, don't waste your money on glute ham machines, right? Like, they take up a lot of space, right? Only one person can use them at a time. Like, there are all these things, right? Well, being stupid and, you know, not thinking, man, like, yeah, we can make it work. We bought 2 and set them over here, and the second that you have more than, you know, 8 to 10 people in a group, 2 pieces of equipment don't work anymore. You know, especially with that baseball team, right? So 30 athletes in here, you know, 25 to 30 athletes, and you've got 2 glute ham raises. They bottleneck. And in the adult groups, like, they get tired of waiting on it, and so they go do something else. Sure. So we talked about being a logistics expert. Well, those 2 pieces of equipment totally messed up our logistics. And so they literally sat here for 2 or 3 years until we found another gym that was interested in them. And, you know, we got a little bit of our money back from it and things like that. But still, like, I think about it all the time, like, hey, that money could have been spent on a freaking med ball wall we should have put up to. You know, and you know, from a business standpoint, I would say one of the things that is find a software system that does everything that you need it to do. We went through 3. You know, we went through 3 different ones. We finally settled on Mind Body, and I know, like, that's kind of like, you know, should I squat or not squat?
Yeah,
you know,
it's controversial.
Right,
you know?
right.
Some people love it.
Right.
I loved it I think it solved a lot of things, and I thought I liked their service.
Yeah.
I happen to have a great relationship with their service.
They've been very helpful with us, and again, it's kind of like training, right? If it's not the right fit for you, then don't push a square, you know, the square peg into a round hole. But they've been really good for us. It allows us to go back and check things. It allows us to keep up with who's coming, keep up with their visits, how many times are they coming, you know, because we do packages, right? Yeah. So, like, your membership basically tells me that you're going to come 3 times a week, right? That's your membership fee or due, but somebody else may come twice a week, you know, or 8 times over the course of a 4-week month. So that allows us to really kind of keep up with that, because we came from an archaic, like, you'll think this is funny, we had cards on the wall, and they were literal index cards. And like if you came to our 5:30 class, you would walk over, you'd find your name, you'd pull the card out, you'd put it in the basket, and then when you left, me as a coach would go back and I'd stamp it.
I mean, I know this is a rural area.
Yeah, man, like we're pen and paper, baby, like that. Oh, that's exactly, you know, we did that for like 6 months, and I was like, this is not.
Whatever works, right? It wasn't working.
It wasn't working. You know, it was easy to keep up when we first started because we didn't have that many new, right?
Yeah.
Now you got your teams coming in, you've got more members, you've got people that are visiting. Like, what do you do with a visitor? Now you give them a card if they don't decide to join, whatever. Like, do you whatever, you know. So we went through 3 different ones, and that's the other thing is find a software system that allows you to track your revenue, that allows you to track your billing, that allows you to track your members, and do some things for you.
It's also, you have to feel comfortable with it because look, there's a lot of software solutions that will offer that, but you have to feel comfortable with what you know, because there's always a you know, this learning curve.
Sure.
It's going to take a while.
Right.
You know, when you're opening a place, you're like so overwhelmed. You don't want to be, oh, now I got to go home and I got to learn MindBody. I got to set it up because it's always the hardest part, setting up stuff.
And then the other part is they got used to it, right? So our members got used to walking through that door and whatever. We still have to tell them, like 3 years later, 4 years down the road, we still, hey guys, don't forget to check in. You can check in on your app, you can check in up front. You know, our coaches have it on their phone, so there's really no excuse for them not to do that, you know? So they can, like, I literally can walk over and say, hey, you know, you're not in, check yourself in, you know what I mean? But it's not, that's our mistake. And we have to own that, right? Like extreme ownership, right? Like we have to own that. That's our mistake. That we didn't set up that way, so now we do play a little back, you know, we do backtrack a little bit, and for the most part, most of our members are really good at it, but it's something that they had to get used to because that's not the way we started. You know?
Well, that's the way it goes anyway.
That's it.
A lot of things. So you guys are doing a great job here. I love kind of over the last couple of years seeing how you guys have grown and
thank you.
Things are getting better.
It's been a lot of fun, right?
And you know, just such a great environment. So thanks
a lot. Thank you so much, and appreciate it. Thanks a lot.